You if it wasn't for the Rothschilds overinflating the currency and stealing generational wealth from everyone and causing prices to raise faster than wages, people wouldn't really resent the welfare recipients as much because it'd be a small drop in the bucket. It's just that if you say, I'm going to be honorable, I'm not going to be part of the parasite class, I'm not going to take any handouts of government money, and I'm just going to work for what I have, it does kind of tempt you to resent the people who take the money, you know, have way more food, way more luxuries, way more. And they have like so many people in this country. Like, why do I keep caring? Because so many other people don't. The country is trillions of dollars in debt. And a lot of people just don't even feel guilty to just never work a job and just draw tax money. And I saw this comic, and it's got the Jewish billionaires at the middle of the table with a plate just piled up with cookies. And then the white guy on one side's got like 3 or 4 cookies, and the black guy's got no cookies or one cookie. And the Jew tells the white guy, he wants your cookies. And there's a lot of truth in that cartoon. There's a whole bunch of billionaires. They have $1,000 million. Now, there's more tax revenue to be made. You can't, like, if you took all the money from the rich, it wouldn't be enough to lift all the rest out of poverty. But even still, it does seem unfair. Congress was talking about increasing the taxes for people who make $30,000. And I think that's just really crazy. Really, they need to stop the inflation. There needs to be some sort of ratio set where if the prices are going to go up, the wages need to go with it. My day is going all right. I lost my glasses and I found them though. Still sore from the work week. I need to go back to work Monday. They are favoring the rich, but they're not really just favoring the rich. They're favoring the super, super rich. The billionaires. Like in the trillionaires. A lot more wealth gets robbed through inflation, really. These bankers can just print up money out of thin air and buy whatever they want. And then when the money goes through the circulation, prices go up. And it's really bad that these prices just raise and raise and raise and go up. And the wages don't stay up at the same ratio. And there's not really any kind of mechanism to like lock in place a set ratio between the two. And it seems like every time the government tries to get involved and fix anything, they make it worse. But really, something's got to be done. They shouldn't be allowed to just, for one, the government shouldn't be borrowing money from a private banking cartel. They should just be issuing the state currency. But we know what happens to any state that attempts to do that. They get bombed, invaded, and they get a Rothschild bank, or their president gets shot in the head. But one day something's going to have to give. It's weird, like 1984. What is the George Orwellian book? He predicted everybody looking at screens and them updating history in real time. I screenshotted it in case they change it. But if you ask AI right now on Google or Grok, can a 306 go through can a human neck stop a 306? They'll say, no, it can't. That's impossible. But they told us that happened with Charlie Kirk, which I now think they're changing it and saying it's a 9 millimeter. I mean, no, that's what the whatever the boy's name is saying. And they're saying it's a Glock now. Black screen. Did I accidentally touch something? Borrow than default. That was a psyop. I think, like 9/11, sometimes they just need to traumatize people or distract people. There's so many things about that story that don't make any sense. And the more they try to collaborate their story, the more contradictions show up. Now, to me personally, I've hunted, I've been a hunter, and I just think it's an exit wound from a smaller caliber than what they're saying, which I don't know for sure. But then they don't do an autopsy. You want to do an autopsy within the first day or two. And instead of doing that, they just take him to the J.D. Vance and then take him to his wife and then bury him with no autopsy. They dig up the ground where they said they were looking for the bullets and don't find any bullets and pave over it. They put up big old fences. They tamper with the scene, move the chair around, move stuff around, take the camera down behind him. And then there's videos, and I don't know if it's AI. That's the big problem, with AI. They make so much fake stuff, you never know what you can believe is real or not real. But then when they slow some of these videos down by frame, it looks like it's not even real. But then, everybody saw it. There's a lot of people there. Now, there's a lot of things they say that, like the ring. I could see his hand moving and it falling from one side to the other, especially because of the type of ring it was and all. The letters on the shirt changing as he moves. Well, see here, I'll just tell you this, right? Like a lot of people, when they went to digital cameras, started believing in shapeshifters and all this stuff. I was at my creek and I was filming fish with my digital camera on my phone. And I didn't have good service. So, that played a role in it. And I was live streaming when I was recording. And I recorded this fish swimming in the creek. And I saw the fish with my own eye. And the fish was just a normal fish. It just swam normal. But when I went to watch the live, it looks like the fish's head just stretches out and then his tail zooms to his head. And it's just with digital cameras and bad signal and everything, it glitched up, but somebody might watch that video in the future and say that's a shape-shifting reptilian fish or whatever. So I don't know with digital cameras and stuff if the camera's making mistakes when it's trying to record, and that's why the letters bounce around and move like they do. I really don't know. And I'm not saying I know what happened. I just know they're lying. I know it didn't happen like they say it happened. If the boy, if he's traced by his phone, he doesn't have time to get there in time. So if he could have just not had his phone with him. Like if I was going to do something out like that, I wouldn't take my phone because I know they'll track me with it. So I'd leave my phone with somebody else or a decoy or something. Well, then if he didn't have his phone with him, then he couldn't have possibly sent those messages. Somebody else sent those messages. And then if he did send those messages, he couldn't have been close enough to shoot. And then they say, well, they got him on video, right? Well, if you look at the original video, it's blurry. There's not a lot of pixels. And then what they're showing you is an AI enhanced image. And then after they had him in custody, they changed the AI enhanced image that they show to make it look even more like him. And then he won't talk or say anything or cooperate. And then when he does, he's worried that his family's going to be killed. And he's just wondering if he can just sort of take the fall for his mistakes and die, and will they leave his family alive? And then he admits to killing him, but he says he done it with a 9mm and threw it away in a garbage can. And then they're saying that he used a Glock, not a 9mm. And that's after they said it was a 3-06. And then they say they know that the reason they connect him to it is they connect him to the 3-06 that is his granddad's gun, because they say his DNA was on the screwdriver to disassemble it. But then later they try to tell us that that's an entry wound, not an exit wound, and that his neck stopped it, and there's no exit wound from a 3-06 at 200 yards. Are you? I don't want to cuss, but I mean, I do it all the time, so I don't want to now. But are you kidding me? I've seen that same gun go through small pine trees, multiple 2x4s, all the way through vehicles. I've seen that bullet hit a deer, break through its shoulder, bust it all open, bust a big ass hole out the back up. Like, no way. No way. They did do an autopsy. Okay, I'm not trying to spread misinformation. I did not know they did an autopsy. So I'm not trying to spread misinformation. I just didn't know that. But I've been wanting to see the autopsy. I know that I saw something where they said a surgeon said that it was a miracle. His neck stopped the bullet, so it didn't hurt nobody else. And I'm just like, come on now. I have a brown hair with red beard also. Don't know how that happens. Well, I'll tell you how it happened with me. On my daddy's side of the family, and a lot of people on my mama's side of the family, we have Scots-Irish. But then we also have a little bit of Native American and, other. It's just, I don't know. Both of my parents have black hair, but both of my parents have a parent with red hair. My mama's daddy and his sister has red hair, but she's got black hair, and her mama's got black hair. And then my daddy, he's got black hair. His mama's got black hair, but his daddy has red hair. So just, even though both of my parents have black hair, which my dad has some red hair in his beard, but it just, them genes, I have not seen the autopsy. I know when I first heard it, I've been waiting to see the autopsy. But there's just a lot of things in the story that don't add up. And also, I think there was a lot of people working together to cause distractions and confusion and make it hard to ascertain where the bullet come from, what the bullet was. And it's declassified that the CIA has ice bullets that melt away, that have shellfish toxins that can cause people to have a heart attack. Like Breitbart, and there's a lot of journalists have been killed by the government with the heart attack ice bullet gun. And I'm not saying he was killed by an ice bullet. I'm just saying you never really know. They could have fired that rifle to make a noise to cover it up. I know that you can have echoes and you can have two sounds, the sound of the bullet exploding and the sound of the vacuum of air collapsing in on itself behind the bullet and the echo. But if you slow the video down right in between when the bullet leaves him, or they say enters him, you hear two sounds. If you play it real fast, it just sounds like one gunshot, one sound. And I'm not saying it's two shots, but it could be two shots. And I even saw one thing where they're now saying that two bullets hit him in the chest. But then again, I haven't had time. I'm gonna take time to go and see like which one of these things multiple sources are confirming, and some of it could just be people making up stuff. I don't know what happened. I just know it didn't happen quite like they say it happened. And there's so many inconsistencies that they're saying that they might have to drop the charges on the boy before the trial, which there's going to be some conservatives that are absolutely convinced it's the killer, and they would be outraged by that. There's people like me, I kind of think that maybe Mossad had something to do with it, but at the same time, why hasn't Mossad killed Candace Owens and Nick Fuentes and, Owen Benjamin and just other people? So it'd be kind of weird for Mossad to kill Charlie and not them other people. But that's not to say that they didn't, because I guess he was more influential than they are. So you never know. And a lot of people said that he might be president one day, so they might have seen him as a bigger threat than people like Candace Owens or Nick or whoever else. But I don't know. Now, regardless if that's a patsy or the real killer, the fact that so many progressive liberals celebrated his death, well, that's a canary in the mine right there. That's a bad sign. You know, when people start rejoicing about people being killed for their opinions, that's a really bad sign in this country. Either way you cut it. Now, I've heard some people say the conservatives are participating in cancel culture and whatever. But I'm going to tell you this, right? Well, I'm about to fall out this hammock. If you're an employer, you know, half your customers might be liberal, half your customers might be conservative, half your employees might be conservative, half your employees might be liberal. And it is just too much of a risk. It's too much of a hazard to hire someone who's online celebrating the murder of people for having different opinions. Imagine if you knew somebody was celebrating someone getting murdered for their opinions, and you just keep them as an employee, and then one day they kill one of your customers or fellow employees. That would be crazy. So because of the liability of that, I can understand why people lost their jobs. I wouldn't say that's exactly on par with just censorship. You know, people who celebrate people getting murdered are mentally ill, and they're a legal risk and a liability to hire. So I don't believe a word known liars say. And this is something, you know, like the coronavirus, right? When they come out with the vaccine, and it was an RNA vaccine, mRNA vaccine, I remember from biology that, you know, that interacts with DNA to code for proteins. So I was like, hell no, I'm not going to take this, right? So I went to tell people about that. Well, do you know that during that time, Google was saying it was misinformation to say that RNA was was messenger DNA that coded for proteins? They changed the algorithm and then changed it back. So people was thinking I was a liar when I was telling the truth. And I'm like, what do you mean? They've been teaching this since the 80s. Probably before that, but my encyclopedias only went back so far. But anyway, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if AI starts changing the data to fit the story. Like, you know, they change algorithms all the time. But it reminds me of 1984, where how did George Orwell predict the future so well? It's insane. But he predicted this, that everybody would be watching screens, that they would change the definitions of words, that they would change history in real time. But anyway, I'm getting back to the point. I wasn't really off the subject. So I watched this video that explained how the vaccine codes for the spike protein in the virus and everything. And this guy in the comment section said, this isn't true, or they would have put it on the news. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Didn't you know that all the news channels was saying brought to you by Pfizer for so long? Like, they straight up told you that they had stock in the news, and then they're making the money off the vaccine. Do you think the news that's owned by Pfizer is going to tell you? And the news just has like a long track record of lying. So it still just astounds me that there will be people that when you show them the truth and you can prove the truth to them, they'll say, I don't believe it because the news didn't tell me. How could people be so like oblivious to that? The news is not there to tell you the truth. The news is there to shape public consensus and push a narrative and push an agenda. It's about controlling the population. The news is in bed with the Rothschilds and the CIA. Like McCarthy, he started finding a lot of communists that wanted to destroy America, but they didn't really want to go after them because they kept being Jews. And so they demonized McCarthy. But the government said, hey, wait, this is an opportunity. Instead of going after all these people, let's use them. And so Hollywood and the news media, there's a lot of CIA that went into Hollywood and went into the media, and the government just sort of used the media to push their agenda. So instead of getting rid of the corruption, the government said, hey, we can be a part of this corruption. And the government and Hollywood, they started striking deals with each other. And now a lot of your news anchors are CIA. And a lot of people don't know that. And I just don't understand, like, they'll say the most trusted name in news. And we already know they lied about John F. Kennedy. Like they said, his head went this way and to the left and whatever. And then you know that, I forget his name. He's been a famous journalist for a long time. Nobody, the public wasn't allowed to see the video. And then he did see the video, but he reported the news and said opposite of what happened in the video. So the most trusted name in news has been lying ever since then. And people keep trusting him and believing him. And then they won't believe people telling the truth that bring receipts and facts because they say, well, if that was true, I would have heard it on the news. I just cannot believe that there are people that are still like that still haven't figured it out. Like, how many times you got to see the same crisis actors? How many times you got to see people that they say dead that you see pop up alive? You know, like Timothy McVeigh, he didn't die. That lethal injection of Timothy McVeigh, that was a psyop. He's an FBI agent with a different name, still alive today. They didn't want people having gunpowder and being able to pack their own bullets, and also they had to say, look, you got to be scared to let the American citizens be able to do that. They could blow up a bomb. But the government blew up the Oklahoma City bomb. The government did that. And I'm wondering if this guy, if they're going to tell us that he's dead, and then we'll see him working for the FBI or the CIA, or as a news journalist 10 years down the road, we'll see somebody looking exactly like him with a different name. But I don't know. I really don't know. I do. And it's really, you know, it's really sad to see them use this to try to curtail free speech and censor people, you know, but you know, at a certain point, you can't always reconcile opposites. You can't always get along with the other side. Sometimes there's no common ground, you know. You know, the people who think life is sacred and the people that think babies are parasites, they're not really going to get along, are they? You know, the people that believe in duty and responsibility and hedonists, they're not really going to get along. So sometimes there is no common ground to be found. Sometimes your enemy is just your enemy. But I just, you know, most people just want to have families and mind their own business but they, I don't know. I don't really know what happened, but I know they're lying. And anyone that's still trusting mainstream media, CNN or Fox, MBNC or ABC or PBS or the BBC, any of it, if you're still trusting any news that you see on TV, you're very gullible and naive, and your head's been in the sand. And if they do tell you the truth, they tell you the truth out of context. They leave stuff out. They leave the other side. They misrepresent. They edit. They're basically paid to be professional liars. These mosquitoes are starting to bite. I got that O positive blood, so they really like me. You know, I forget which one it is, but, you know, chimpanzees and gorillas, one of them's got the A blood. And then humans have the A and the B and the O, Rh negative and Rh positive. We all bleed red, but we don't have all compatible blood types. You know, if a woman was Rh negative, her body would kill my babies. It's kind of a weird thing, isn't it? Well, peace, y'all.